What's up, guys? Your girl Luki here, back with another video, and today I'll be discussing this Phil Spencer interview. As you guys know, Phil Spencer is one of my favorite liars. He's definitely in the top three, so it's always interesting to read an interview with him, hear an interview with him, and hear his thoughts on the industry and how Xbox is currently doing. Now, we're just gonna go ahead and zoom in. All right. In this interview, he discusses the future of Xbox, their plans in terms of reaching out to Gen Z and actually solidifying themselves for that audience, and also there's his thoughts on the industry layoffs. Which, as I was reading through it, I was just like, this is definitely him saying a whole lot of nothing, which is what he's good at. He's an executive; it's what they do, right? So we're going to go ahead and discuss it, and I will go ahead and offer my perspective on it as just a regular consumer, just know nothing about business other than the obvious, right? So, all right. So, Polygon had asked Phil if the ABK layoffs were part of the wider trend or if there was something unique about the layoffs as they pertain to the current Xbox business. Now, what I find interesting about this is that I don't I can understand the question. I have to ask, like, why there has to be a distinction, I think that they coincide with one another. The larger industry trend of laying off folks, I think it goes hand in hand on what Microsoft ended up doing, Microsoft as a whole, you know? So, Spencer says it's a little bit of both. The thing that has me most concerned for the industry is the lack of growth, which, again, I always find it very interesting to hear his perspective on these things when it's like, you talk about a lack of growth. Yeah. But you know what plays into that? Not having compelling IP to push your console sales. And now that you're putting your software on other hardware, rival hardware, then it's kind of like, oh, you know that there's going to continue being a steep decline in Xbox hardware. Like, I feel like this is very obvious, very simple to predict that this would happen. And Microsoft is apparently talking about a Xbox handheld, which would be cool. I like handhelds, but I have no reason to further invest in Microsoft hardware at this point because I feel like they don't care about the hardware. So because I feel that way, there's no point in investing further. And that's just my perspective on it. But he says when you have an industry that's projected to be smaller next year in terms of dollars and players, and you get a lot of publicly traded companies that are in the industry that have to show their investors growth. The side of the business that gets scrutinized is the cost side, because if you're not going to grow the revenue side, then the cost side becomes challenged. We're business, I said over and over again, I don't get any luxury of not having to run a profitable, growing business inside of Microsoft. And we are that today because just across the industry, you mentioned it, and then sitting here at GDC, I reflect on friends of mine in the industry that have been displaced and lost their jobs, and how just I don't want this industry to be a place where people can't, with confidence, build a career. Again, I personally, I wouldn't work in this industry. I feel like it's far too unstable. There is I feel like there's like a lack of oversight when it comes to a lot of these things, in the sense that there's weird things that happen at these companies. Now, I'm not saying that these weird things don't happen in other industries, but I'm just saying, like, there's some very strange behavior that you see in these corporations. And again, you know, he answered like a businessman. There's no human element there, really. Human as in like empathetic element, which is to be expected because this is what he's supposed to do, right? Like as an executive, right? But he's saying, how does this industry get back to growth? I I feel like it I feel like it comes down to spending less, maybe spending less money on these titles, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe not being so I don't maybe not spending, what was it, 70 billion to buy Activision Blizzard and then immediately lay off folks, which is typical in most mergers because there's going to be positions that become redundant. You don't need 2 of the same thing depending on the context of what the job is, right? So I understand why it happened, but I do think it's unfortunate, especially given Xbox's, choice, their decision to start porting their games over to PlayStation. I honestly don't even understand, like, I don't know what the point of them coming out with another Xbox. I feel like there's no point to that at all, like, but I mean, that's just my opinion on it today, right? But, he's asking about how the industry can get back to growth. Okay. It can grow and it will grow again, but you see this time right now and the implications having a human impact, and we should all reflect on that and think about that. Again, like it's just a whole lot of nothing, right? So, Spencer continually returned to the idea of exclusivity. For Spencer, porting these games over to Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 5 is a way to bring more players and sales, seemingly, in theory, to these old games, but it's also a way to break out of some of the industry old habits like exclusivity, which I don't necessarily I don't necessarily think that exclusivity is a bad habit, but it works for Nintendo, so he says, consider 2 years of lack of growth in the gaming industry at the top line. You start to ask yourself, well, I don't want to grow at the expense of the industry. I want to grow as a part of the industry. And what do we need to do as an industry to get back on that growth plan? Which this concept of doing it all for the industry's sake, it's like, at the end of the day, you want your company to continue to grow for your company. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about profits, right? Um, for me, it's just a very odd choice. Lots of very odd choices that Xbox has been making lately. And I just have to wonder, like, I personally don't think it's going to work out for them, but maybe it will. Maybe, this little plan that they have in order to bring in more games to rival platforms, maybe it will end up working out. I don't know. But he did continue saying, okay, he said, I will say every decision we make today and tomorrow is for the better of Xbox. I know sometimes things get weaponized and there's some evil in the background that's making us do things. Phil hates exclusives, and that's why we're like PlayStation and Switch now. And that's why we're like, okay, every decision we make is to make Xbox stronger in the long run. It doesn't mean everyone's going to agree with every decision we make, but it is fundamental for how we make decisions. Again, I don't believe that putting your games on a rival platform, specifically PlayStation 5, is going to make the Xbox brand stronger. I feel like if anything, it's going to make it more so that people are like, well, there's no point in buying an Xbox. There's no point in buying games on Xbox. These games will show up on PlayStation or Switch and PC. So there's no point to I feel like the Xbox brand suffers because of this decision. But this notion that Xbox can only be this one device that plugs into a television isn't something we see in the Gen Z research, because nothing else is like that for them. Some of them will have an iPhone, some of them will have an Android, but all the games and everything is the same. I can still get to TikTok on both of them, at least for now. All their stuff is available wherever they want. So for Xbox, our brand pivot as we attract and maintain relevance with a younger audience is Xbox is a place where I can find the great games I want to. Again, I am gonna be so honest, I don't think that Xbox is going to be able to attract and maintain relevance with a younger audience other than, like, what, Minecraft, right? I think that you have to have some very Xbox, you barely have any compelling IP to keep the people you do have now, to make the people you do have happy. I mean, that's supposed to change this year. Finally, the games that have been supposed to be that are supposed to come out for years are finally coming out, right? Some compelling IP, but I don't really believe this idea of Xbox is a place where I can find the great games I want to. I don't believe that because I feel like they don't believe that, you know? If it's truly an Xbox is the place where I can get these great games, then why would you I understand you're trying to make money, trying to sell more of your software, but again, I feel like it is to the detriment of your hardware. But I don't know. It is what it is, I guess, not trying to be a doomer, but I just think that this is just really, really interesting. And all I can say is that I'm very curious to see where it goes from here. And if their plans end up working out, like, Lord knows they have changed their mind enough times over the last 5 years or so. But that's it for me, guys. I'm very curious to hear everyone's thoughts on this interview in the comment section below. Just let me know, and I'll catch y'all for another one, that is. Peace.